Good morning, everybody. Good morning, fellow challengers. Okay, we're not going to talk about my hair this morning. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 16 of our Do It for a Day challenge. So we have now dove in to the nitty-gritty of what Pastor Mark Batterson teaches of habits that actually can help make or break habits, right? And it is getting very good, very good. So our first habit that we dove into second one was Kiss the Wave. First one was, oh my word, flip the script. Yes, I remembered. So what I want you to make sure, I mean, I'd love for you to take notes of all of it, right? Because I think at some point you might want to refer back to it. But these things I want you to jot down, because I hope you'll remember the 3 days, because it looks like we're taking 3 days to jump in on each sort of habit. So flip the script. Remember, the gist of that is that we have an inner script in our lives, whether it's how we grew up, the voice, a voice that we follow, right? Negative or positive, and how to flip that, right? So we covered that for 2 days. Then we went into Kiss the Wave, and we covered that for a few days. And that is, one of the ideas was the obstacle is not the enemy. The obstacle is the way. So that was an amazing teaching for a few days. And today we're going into our habit number 3, eat the frog. Yeah. Not sure where that's going to go. I got my morning coffee. I have to confess, that's why I was a little behind, getting on here. I had to quickly stop by Walmart, and that was not a quick stop. If any of you know Walmart. So anyway, we're here. We're ready. I had my sip of coffee. So today, what we're going to do is we have a couple pages talking about eat the frog, and then we go into our day. So like every 4th day, it'll be like a couple minutes longer, and that's why I won't review on those days. All right, so let's get started. Let me move my coffee. Yesterday, had a beautiful cup of coffee on my desk. I think it happened before the live too. Spilt it all over the desk. Anyway, not going into that. So I'm moving it. All right. Habit number 3, eat the frog. So we are more than halfway, 1 day more, but still more. If you want God to do the super, you've got to do the natural. If you ever have to eat a live frog, Mark Twain is purported to have said, it's best done first thing in the morning. Why? Because you can go through the rest of the day knowing that the hardest task is behind you. That scenario is awfully unlikely, but it's good advice nonetheless. How you start the day sets the tone, sets the pace. Well begun is half done. Of course, the opposite is true too. If your day gets off to a bad start, it's hard to course correct. On that note, all of us have at least 127 bad days per year. All right, I totally made up that statistic. I aimed high because of the anchoring effect. You felt better, if even for a second, didn't you? Speaking of the anchoring effect, we're living on a planet that is speeding through space at nearly 67,000 miles per hour. So even on a bad day, a day when you don't get much done, you did travel 1.6 million miles through space. So there is that. Remember the study done by Duke University? On average, 45% of our behavior is automatic. I dare say that the percentage is a little higher first thing in the morning. Why? We're still waking up. And if you wake up late, I bet it's even higher. You don't have time to think about anything except getting dressed and getting out the door. At the halfway point of our 30-day challenge, it's time to do a little deconstruction. I want you to evaluate your morning routine. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is, I don't know what I've got different here today. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Okay. Where are we? I want you to evaluate your morning routine. What time do you get up? Why? If you don't ask why, it's awfully easy to go through the motions. What is the first thing you do and why? Keep a time log of everything you do from the second you wake up to the moment you walk out of the door. Now ask these questions. Does your routine align with your goals? Is it in sync with who you're trying to become and what you're trying to accomplish? Remember the growth mindset from day 2? Harder is better. Eating the frog adds a timestamp. Harder, sooner. And it's not just getting it out of the way or checking it off the list. It's an approach to life that embraces challenge. Eating the frog doesn't shirk responsibility or shrink from danger. It doesn't handicap hardship. It's a mindset that welcomes resistance as a form of resistance training. Of course, there's nothing wrong with adding an element of fun along the way. Mark Twain and Teddy Roosevelt were contemporaries and in many ways cut from the same cloth. They didn't get along, politically speaking, but both of them approached life with a no-nonsense, no excuses, no ifs, ands, or buts about it pragmatism that is to be applauded. That approach to life is epitomized by one of Roosevelt's favorite pastimes, something he called a point-to-point hike. Teddy Roosevelt took no pleasure in hiking trails that had already been blazed. He loved getting off the grid, off the map. The point-to-point hike involved one simple rule. Upon setting out for a particular destination, you may not alter course. You had to hike in a straight line, no matter what. If you came to a wall, you climbed over it. If you encountered a stream, you swam across it. Instead of going around, you had to go through. Sounds a lot like kissing the wave, doesn't it? The obstacle is not the enemy. The obstacle is the way. One day, President Roosevelt invited the French ambassador on one of those point-to-point hikes. What the president called a walk was a run, said Jean-Jules Jusserand. During that hike, they came across Rock Creek. I have a hunch this was very much planned. Roosevelt took off his clothes right down to his skivvies. The French ambassador, with great reluctance, followed suit. I, too, for the honor of France, removed my apparel, everything except for my lavender kid gloves. Why not the gloves? If we should meet ladies. I can think of some other things you might want to keep covered, but I'm not French. I can't prove this, but I wonder whether this is where the old saying comes from. I see London, I see France, I see the ambassador's underpants. Just a theory, mind you. Habit formation is a point-to-point hike. You cannot allow yourself shortcuts or detours. You cannot do an end run around tough times or tough conversations. Eating the frog is having the courage to go through them and coming out the other side with a testimony. How else are you going to cultivate mental toughness? What makes us think we can become like Jesus without being betrayed by Judas, denied by Peter, scoffed at by Pharisees, mocked by Roman soldiers, or tempted by the enemy himself? That's how we grow up, spiritually speaking. It's time to eat the frog. Okay, so here's day 16 for us. Do it difficult. 2 Corinthians 11:23. I have worked much harder. On October 14th, 1912, Teddy Roosevelt was on the campaign trail when he was shot point blank by a would-be assassin. With a .32 caliber bullet lodged in his chest, he got up and gave the speech anyway. The bullet is in me now, he said, so that I cannot make a very long speech. Roosevelt spoke for 90 minutes while blood from the bullet wound soaked through his shirt. Of course, that was par for the course. Roosevelt was part Renaissance man. Oh, I love that. That's our ministry, Renaissance Life Ministries. Roosevelt was part Renaissance man, part wild man. He earned every one of his nicknames: the Bull Moose, the Rough Rider, the Man on Horseback, the Dynamo, the Trust Buster, the Happy Warrior, and the Hero of San Juan Hill, just to name a few. Roosevelt once rode a moose bareback, flew a Wright brothers airplane, scaled the Swiss Alps, worked as a ranch hand in the Dakotas, took down an armed cowboy during a barroom brawl, crossed a frozen river to apprehend boat thieves, went on month-long African safaris, explored the Amazon River, led the charge up Kettle Hill during the Battle of San Juan, and went skinny dipping in the Potomac, if I'm saying that right, River. Think of that last one as a century-old ice bucket challenge. Fun fact, Roosevelt set up a boxing ring in the White House where he would spar with anyone brave enough to get into the ring. One of his aides, Dan Tyler Moore, actually blinded the president's left eye with a right hook. Roosevelt concealed the fact that he had lost his sight to protect the reputation of the man who detached his retina. Ooh. Could you ask for any better proof of the man's sportsmanship, said Moore, than the fact that he never told me what I had done to him? Wow. Teddy Roosevelt gave his fair share of memorable speeches, including the one in Milwaukee I mentioned above. But my personal favorite was delivered on April 10th, 1899 at the Hamilton Club in Chicago. It reads more like a sermon than a speech. By my count, Roosevelt used the word preach 4 times and the word doctrine 5 times. He advocated what he called the strenuous life. I wish to preach not the doctrine of ignoble ease, but the doctrine of the strenuous life, the life of toil and effort, of labor and strife, to preach that highest form of success which comes not to the man who desires mere easy peace, but to the man who does not shrink from danger, hardship, or from bitter toil, and who out of these wins the splendid ultimate triumph. Remember the growth mindset? This is that, the doctrine of the strenuous life. It's the essence of eating the frog. When given the option between the elevator and the stairs, take the stairs. Woohoo! Doing that here at my new job. In other words, take the path of most resistance. Oh, God. Can we shut the book? I'm already doing it. It feels like I wanted a feel-good book. Anybody else? Oh, take the path of most resistance. It is the road less traveled. Teddy Roosevelt may have coined the phrase, the doctrine of the strenuous life, but the Apostle Paul set the standard. When he looked back on his life, what did Paul underline with the yellow highlighter? I am out of my mind to talk like this, he said. I have worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, and been exposed to death again and again. But wait, there's more. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. How many scars did Paul have? And what about PTSD? I have been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. Anything else? I have labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. Is that it? I have known hunger and thirst and have gone often without food. Oh, I almost forgot. I have been cold and naked. Remember the idea of downward counterfactual thinking from day 10? Maybe you're having a bad day, got stuck in rush hour traffic. I know that's frustrating. I really do. Stop and go traffic is stressful. But Paul's resume is a reality check, is it not? Again, it beats a covered wagon. At the end of our lives, what will we remember most? It won't be the times when we had nothing to do. Look at a day when you are supremely satisfied at the end, said the former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. It's not a day when you lounge around doing nothing. It's a day you've had everything to do and you've done it. The same could be said of life, could it not? If we want to one day look back at lives that have been supremely satisfying, they won't be lives of ignoble ease. We'll remember the frogs we ate. We'll remember the moments that pushed us past our limits and out of our comfort zones. Have you ever noticed the way octogenarians remember tough times with a touch of nostalgia? Polls suggest that the London Blitz, the bombing raids that terrorized Britain for many sleepless nights during World War II, was for many Londoners the happiest time of their lives. Wait, what? Why? Because we remember the tough times for what they produce. In that instance, hard-fought freedom. It's even true of childbirth, right? After that kind of pain, followed by many sleepless nights, how does anyone have more than one child? All right, sex has something to do with it, but for many women, it's a conscious choice. Why? They forget the pain and remember the gain. How did Jesus endure the cross? By focusing on the joy that was set before him. He approached it as a point-to-point hike. Not my will, Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, but yours be done. That is the key to willpower, which is one key to habit formation. Jesus imagined the prize, you and me. If kissing the wave is doing it scared, eating the frog is doing it difficult. And I might add, doing it now. When I was in the 8th grade, I wore ankle weights to school almost every day. Why? I dreamed of dunking a basketball. I weighed myself down so I could elevate my game. If you want to grow stronger, you have to add resistance. Totally my message. Then what? Add more resistance. There's no other way to win the day. It doesn't get easier. You get stronger. Wow. I think I've read that a gazillion times and it's just ding, ding, ding going on. It doesn't get easier. You get stronger. Whew. How? You have to subscribe to the doctrine of the strenuous life. You can't circumvent tough times, tough questions, tough decisions, or tough conversations. Those are the things that produce mental toughness. Remember the concept of desirable difficulty? Eating the frog is where the rubber meets the road. It's a pre-decision, a decision you make before you have to make a decision. It's choosing the stairs before you have a choice. It's choosing the high road, which happens to be the hard road. It doesn't shrink from sacrifice or flee from danger or handicap hardship. So how do I make it a habit? Conquer your soul. On Halloween in 1900, a 10-year-old boy named Ike wanted to go trick-or-treating with his older brothers. When his parents told him he was too young, he flew into a fit. He ran out the front door and punched an apple tree until his knuckles were raw. Ike was sent to his room, he was sent to his room where he was still sobbing into his pillow an hour later. That's when his mother walked into his room, sat down on a rocking chair next to his bed, and flipped the script with Proverbs 16:32. He that conquereth his own soul is greater than he who taketh a city. Read that before lots, but that is awesome. In 1915, Ike graduated from West Point Military Academy. For the record, he ranked 125th out of 164 for discipline. Self-control did not come naturally. Of all his siblings, his mother told him that he had the most to learn about controlling his passions. As she bandaged his hands, she warned him that anger only injures the person who harbors it. Anger only injures the person who harbors it. Wow. At 76 years of age, Ike would look back over the landscape of his life and identify this teachable moment as a turning point. It was a day when decades happened. I have always looked back on that conversation as one of the most valuable moments of my life. Why? That scripture became his script. Before serving as the Supreme Allied Commander of Operation Overlord during World War II, General Dwight D. Eisenhower had to conquer his own soul. Before leading America during his 2 terms as president, he had to lead himself. By the end of the war, Eisenhower smoked 4 packs a day. Then one day he quit cold turkey. How? I simply gave myself an order. Well, there's an idea. At some point, enough is enough. Is there an executive order that you need to issue yourself? What do you need to stop cold turkey? What do you need to start on a dime? And what are you waiting for? Delayed obedience is disobedience. How do you conquer your own soul? You wage war with your sin nature until you subdue it. Or maybe I should say, until it's subdued by a higher power. You have to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. You have to take up your cross daily and deny yourself. It's the best way to break a bad habit. Leadership starts with self-leadership, and self-leadership starts with self-control. The hardest person to lead, hands down, is you. That's why habits are so hard to make and break. But if you want to conquer a city, you have to conquer yourself first. Do it difficult. Wow. There were some powerful one-liners in here, weren't there? Whew. Oh, so many. Anger only injures the person who harbors it. I love that. There was just so many. Wow, wow, wow. All right. So that was day 16 of our number 3 habit of Eat the Frog. So we've got, I think, 3 or 4 days of that. And yeah, this has just been amazing. So welcome to all. I never got a chance to do this at the beginning. Welcome to all of our, I can't see anybody on here. Wait. Oh, Nancy's here. There you are. I see you now, Nancy. Good morning. All right. Well, welcome to our replayers. I know we had a lot when we started. We must have a few more now. I think we had some people still having trouble where to find us. So it just the same as before. You can find it on Facebook. Just scroll amongst the posts, and then the website is just the best way. And especially if you've, say you're taking notes and your notebook is missing day 5, right? So you don't have to kind of swim through all of the hodgepodge on Facebook. Go to the website. Easiest way to see it. And we've got some other posts up there on Facebook too. We have not a live, but an in-person event that's happening February 13th, 14th, and 15th here in Cleveland. I know I've got a few of you from overseas that want to watch. I don't know that we'll be doing it live, or I imagine we'll be recording it. So maybe there's, I won't say for sure, but it is an in-person event. So when you see the poster for the Encounter Weekend, that is an in-person event. And what else have we got on there? Anyway, go to the website, check it out. There's a few new things in there. So thank you so much for joining us and for continuing on. We are 1 day past the halfway mark. Woohoo! And headed on our final half of our Do It for a Day Habit Challenge. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. Stay warm. wherever you are. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.